Hi there, everybody. This is Dr. John Callahan. I'm talking to you. We're going to be recording this webinar here today. This is something that's totally new for me. I'm of the generation where, technology is a little bit intimidating sometimes, but we're going to give this our best shot. So just to kind of let you know, if there's anybody here that's, not familiar with me or that just liked our page, we're located in York, Nebraska. I have a multifaceted chiropractic clinic. We believe in the philosophy of eat well, think well, um, move well. And basically, what we have in our clinic is a number of different options to keep people healthy. We want to see people thrive. We want to see people improve, not just in how you feel on a day-to-day basis, but actually see some physiological change. And so if you're interested, you can look up our website, which is www.mycallahanchiro.com, and check that out. So I've been in practice for a number of years, over 30 years. I've been here in York, Nebraska. I'm a third-generation chiropractor. So just to let you know a little bit about what we do, we offer a program called 8 Weeks to Wellness. We're in affiliate with a number of offices around the country, and so we have that capability. But tonight, we're going to be recording this for you to look at. Our topic tonight is called Straighten Up, which is how sitting destroys your posture, and try to give you some practical solutions. So as we're in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic, we've gone to online. Most of the time we would have a live program. And so I just want to let you know we have our Clorox wipes here handy, and we are using those, and we're being very careful. Hopefully we can remain open to serve people. We kind of take it on a day-by-day basis. So all that said, I do want to thank you for taking the time to come and listen. Like I said, some aspects of this live are going to be a little more challenging to show you, but we're going to try to make a way to show some of the demonstrations, and we may make that available in separate videos. This particular format allows me to record for roughly 15 minutes at a time, so there may be pieces, maybe 2 or 3 pieces to this webinar. So just to kind of give you some of the logistics there. And so we appreciate you all coming and listening. I hope you get a lot out of it. One of the things that a mentor of mine always says in his talks, and I agree with, it's the worst thing that could possibly happen tonight would be you hear all this information and then you don't do anything about it. So I hope that some of the information we give tonight will motivate some of you to change a few things that you're doing in your life. And if you feel it's appropriate to come in and get checked at some point, which we'll talk about later on, I hope that you make that decision to see what your options are, because posture is a very important part of our health, and it's often overlooked. And today's world, with all the sitting jobs, it's something that's very bad for people's health, and we'll go into that. So I guess I just open by asking you a couple of questions as we go to our first slide. So the first thing is, so if you think about your own posture, if there was a crowd out here, I would ask you the question, so who out here thinks you have perfect posture? Your posture is so good, you could probably teach me a few things about posture. You could, be a model for perfect posture. So normally when we ask that question, nobody raises their hand because, yeah, most of us know that we don't have perfect posture and probably haven't for quite some time. So what is ideal posture? So if you take a look at the slide there, if you look at the guy that's on the left that says ideal posture, so ideally you want the the head to be over the shoulders to be over the hips to be over the knees, and the knees over the ankles, ideally. So one thing that we'd like to demonstrate is for you to maybe take your husband, your wife, significant other, your kids, and just do a quick postural evaluation. So we'll show you how to do that. Most likely that'll be on another video. But if you kind of take a look there, there's a lot of different postures, and you can see by the different types you see on the slide here that there's a number of ways that we develop poor posture. So one thing, and this is something I will show you on a separate video, one way to tell if you have reasonably good posture is the old, put a book on your head and walk around. So I'm actually going to attempt to demonstrate that here in another video. So yeah, if you got a book, put it on your head, but see if you can walk around and see if it falls off. Because if it falls off, if you've got postural deficits, most likely that book will fall off pretty easily. And there's another thing that we're going to demonstrate as well. And what that is if you just go up against a wall, if you back up against a wall, with your feet against the wall, your butt against the wall, your back against the wall, and then bring back your head so it's against the wall, and then see how that feels, and then hold that posture and walk away from the wall, and then tell me, does that feel different than your normal posture? And if it does, well, chances are you have some postural deficits. So let's go on to the next slide. So this slide's called, do you want to live in a bell tower? And if you if you ever remember the Hunchback of Notre Dame and Quasimodo, the question is, if you have poor posture and you take a look at the slide there, do you want to live in a bell tower? And as you look at that picture of the silhouettes of the people on the slide, if you stop and think, is there anybody, maybe a friend or a relative, that has posture like this? And one thing we'll be talking about a little bit later is something called forward head posture, and how really hard that is on our health. But that's something that's very, very common. It's something that develops over a period of time. It's not something you wake up one morning when you're 70 years old and all of a sudden you have, 2 inches of forward head posture. So if you look at that, and if you look at the quotation up above here, above the picture, it says, I'm just going to read it off. It says, deviations in the body's center of gravity caused poor posture, which resulted in intestinal problems, hemorrhoids, varicose veins, osteoporosis, hip and foot deformities, poor health, decreased quality of life, and shortened lifespan. And if you look right under there, that's from the Journal of the American Medical Association. Now, it was a number of years ago, but did you realize that if you have poor posture, that can result in things as crazy as hemorrhoids? Did you realize that? So it's a lot more important, I think, than what we give it credit for. So let's move on here. So what's the reason that all this is going on? Why is posture such a big problem in our culture? Well, one of the biggest reasons is physical inactivity. Our total energy expenditure is only about a third of our ancestors. We just don't get as much exercise. We don't get as much physical activity. And of course, if you're not physically active, depending on your genetics, people tend to develop problems such as being overweight, obesity, and those kind of things. And then if you don't get regular exercise, exercise actually is one of the things that can lead to less chronic degenerative disease. And, if you have a loss of muscle mass due to that, that's actually the biggest sign. What was that? Loss of muscle mass is one of the biggest signs of aging. So even if you are not old chronologically, your body can be aging a lot quicker if you're not moving, if you have poor posture, especially if you don't have a lot of muscle mass. And of course, it talks about too, posture can be a cause of osteoporosis. One of the main things that causes a lot of the trouble in today's world is something called text neck. And that's, people are on their phones, they're leaning forward all the time. There's even some evidence that with certain kids, if they text enough, you get an irritation in the back of the skull, and you can actually develop, they're even calling it almost a new bone. It's called the phone bone. It's crazy. But that's apparently something that's a thing now due to all of the texting. A lot of people have jobs on a computer, just like I'm doing right now. I'm talking to you over a computer, and so I'm sitting for a prolonged period of time. But if you do that day after day, week after week, month after month, that causes some postural deficits. So, there's an old saying when we talk about posture, and that's posture and alignment are pretty much synonymous. So I'm going to go back here. So the old saying, for every reaction, there's an equal and opposite what? Well, equal and opposite reaction. So do we have any control over the alignment of our spine? And I would say, yes, we do. And the reason I know that's true is, of course, from my experience in adjusting people. But if you really stop and think about it, so if you think of braces in your teeth, what do braces do? What's the purpose of braces? And of course, I don't have a crowd here to answer, but the answer is the braces align your teeth. Now, do your teeth have joints? No, they do not. So we have, I think it's 53 joints in the human spine. And those joints are all movable. And so that's one of the things that we have to understand is the movement in those joints is what energizes the brain. And we're going to get into that here a little bit more. Okay, so you might want to stand up for this. Is sitting the new smoking? And so if you think back, those of us that are my age, if you remember, the example that was given is there used to be a guy that was on 60 Minutes, and he was the kind of the hard-hitting journalist. His name was, I think it was Mike Wallace. And if I remember watching him interviewing people, and occasionally they would show Mike Wallace when he was talking, and sometimes he'd be sitting there asking questions with a cigarette in his hand, because smoking was very, very common back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. But then they slowly found out, and the public came to the realization that, smoking was a real problem in terms of, developing things like lung cancer, emphysema, just all those diseases. And so slowly but surely the tide turned, and now, people have to go outside to smoke, and it's almost, I'm not saying it's shameful, but people are a lot more discreet about smoking because they know that they're really affecting their health in a negative way. And so as I think and I take a look here, sitting might end up being like smoking. So the answer is we got to get up and move. I mean, if you look over at the quotes on here, people with sitting jobs have twice the rate of cardiovascular disease as people with standing jobs. The more you sit, the poorer your health and the earlier you may die, no matter how fit you are. And then the bottom says 6 hours per day makes you up to 40% likelier to die within 15 years than someone who sits less, even if you exercise. So sitting is really hard on our health. So we're going to be talking in the next video about some solutions. And so I'm getting close to the 15-minute mark, so I think I'm going to cut it short. And so we've got through with part 1 here. So try to figure out where part 2 is, and we'll go from there.